Welcome back. Now we have a few offensive abilities, and by a few I mean 3. And we're going to make one more because with these first 3, I think we have a pretty good example of 3 very different abilities. But I'd like to do at least one more. It's going to be one of the fire abilities, and this will give us at least one more example of how to make a gameplay ability that's different than the others. As we have several sort of categories, right? We have the launching a projectile category, we have the beam type spell, and we have something that's really completely different and uses a whole bunch of target points that we can use to spawn a bunch of different particles, as well as the ability to have a decal, a magic circle, that we can use to aim. So that's quite a bit different than our other ability types, but I'd like to make one more. And this one is going to be right here, the next fire spell up, and I'm going to call it FireBlast. So we can go ahead and get started. It's going to be an aura damage gameplay ability, and I'm going to go ahead and add a new C++ class for it in abilities. I'm going to find aura damage gameplay ability. I'm going to create a C++ class based on it, and I'm going to call this Aura FireBlast. Let's go ahead and create this class, and we'll open it up here. Here's the CPP file, and here's the header file. Okay, so where do we get started, and what is this ability going to do? Well, I think a good place to get started would be the description, because that's where we can decide what it does, and at the same time, implement that spell description for our spell menu, and we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, again, with the descriptions, I'm going to turn to one of my other spells. I'm going to turn to Aura Firebolt, and we're going to use the Aura Firebolt as an example. So I'm going to copy get description and get next level description as well, and we'll override these. I'll need a public section, and we have these 2 functions, and we can generate definitions for them. Okay, so clearing these out, I'm going to go into Aura Firebolt and just copy the contents of get description here, and we'll paste them into Aura FireBlast. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is change the title. This is going to be FireBlast, and I'd like to show the spell level, the mana cost, and the cooldown, and let's decide what it's going to do. I'd like Aura FireBlast to spawn some fireballs, kind of like Firebolt, but I'd like these fireballs to fly out in all directions. So we're really going to spawn a whole bunch of fireballs all at once. And for that, we're going to need a number of fireballs. Now for Firebolt, we're going to call them Firebolts. And for FireBlast, I'm going to call them Fireballs, just to have a distinction between the 2 so we know they're different. So I'm going to make a protected section, and I'm going to add an int32 called num fireballs. And I'm going to do a bunch of them. I'm going to set this to 12. But we'll make this, of course, a U property that we can change from within our blueprint. We'll put it in Edit Defaults Only in the category of FireBlast. Okay, so we have a num fireballs as well. So right here for our description, I'm just going to say launches, space, and then I'm going to close this off like this and get rid of this line. And we're going to say how many of these we're going to launch. So right here after launches, we're going to have %d, and I'm going to add a comment here that says number of fireballs. And just after cooldown, I need to add that. It's going to be num fireballs. So we're going to say launches, num fireballs, and I'm going to copy this line here. And for the text after the num fireballs, I'll just put the space right there. I'm going to say fireballs. I don't need this to be capital. Fireballs in all directions, each coming back, and it's time for a new line at this point. I'll put a space after and we'll say exploding upon return, causing space, and then we have damage down here, fire damage with a chance to burn, and actually I'm going to say radial fire damage with a chance to burn. So we can use radial damage with a fall off here. So we can cause radial fire damage. Now, I personally am making the decision to just launch 12 fireballs. I mean, of course, we could change this from 12, but I don't want to scale that by my level. I just want it to always be 12. And we'll just scale the damage up with our curve table. So my description doesn't need an else case. And we also don't need to check if the level is 1. I'm just going to return this definition regardless of the level. So I'm going to remove that if statement there. Now, for our next level description, we can paste it in here. This can now say next level. And it's going to be the same thing. So really, we could just call get description and return that. So we could just return get description and pass in level. We could do that because I don't really plan on it being any different. So I'm just going to be efficient, not lazy, efficient, and do that. Okay, so we have an Aura FireBlast. In addition to this, I'm going to need a function to spawn those fireballs. However, we're going to need a fireball class to spawn. So we'll do that next. But before we go into all that, let's just compile and test out things. Let's get everything tied together in our system and make sure that we can see this spell description in our menu. Okay, so we're back in the editor. We're going to make a blueprint based on our new gameplay ability. So we're going to go into Blueprints, Ability System, Aura, Abilities, and Fire. And we're going to need a new folder in Fire, aren't we? We're going to call this one FireBlast. Now let's open FireBlast and let's make a new blueprint. And we're going to search for Aura FireBlast. Here it is. I'm going to select it and call this GA FireBlast. And we can open it up. Now, the first thing we need, at least the first thing I think of, is an ability tag, which we could have made while we were in C++, but we can go back and make it now. I'm just going to close the editor and open Aura gameplay tags for that. So here's Aura gameplay tags, and I'm going to make my new ability tag just under arcane shards. It's going to be called Abilities Fire Blast. And why not? Let's put this just under Firebolt so the fire abilities are together. And we can go ahead and make the gameplay tag. Here's Firebolt. We can copy that. We can paste it and make Aura Fire Blast. And all we need to change is Firebolt now becomes FireBlast. And we have the tag. And we can compile and we can launch again. Okay, so I'm going to get my ability back open the full blueprint editor, and add my ability tag here. So it's going to be Abilities FireBlast. And there we go. And here we see our num fireballs, and we have a damage effect class. We could go ahead and set that to GE damage. That's totally fine, but we're going to set the other parameters soon, but I just want to tie things together to make sure that we can see this in our spell menu, because right now we can't, right? So we're going to need to do that. So let's do it. That means we need to go into Blueprints, Ability System, Data, and open Ability Info, and add a new element to our array here for our new ability. So we can set its ability tag first. That's going to be Abilities FireBlast. We don't have a cooldown tag yet. We have an ability type, though. We know it's offensive. And if we open the icon, we can search for fire. And look at this, we have a FireBlast. And we can go to it and see that this is what it looks like. So there's our FireBlast icon. And I'm going to use the same background material as Firebolt. In other words, I'm going to search for MI Fire. And here's Fire Skill BG, and I'll just use that same background material for all fire spells. I'm going to set the level requirement to 2 and the ability to GA FireBlast. And for now, that's all we have. I'm going to go ahead and minimize index 5 and keep this one open and save ability info. And with that, we have FireBlast. So that's the first thing we need to do. The next thing we need to do is go into our Content Blueprints UI and open Spell menu and get our offensive spell tree and decide which of these icons needs our ability tag. I'm going to set it to this one here. I'm going to search for ability tag and set this one to FireBlast. So with that, this spell has FireBlast assigned to it. And if we go ahead and click on it, we'll see the spell is locked until level 2 because it now has a valid spell, whereas the others are just empty because there's nothing there. Now we can level up. I'm going to go ahead and just gain some experience and open up. And here we see FireBlast. And there's our spell description. And we see that it causes 0 damage because we haven't set that. It has a mana cost of 0 and a cooldown of 0. We haven't set those either, but everything else works. And if we spend a point on it, here's what it looks like. We can equip it as well. There's what it looks like there. And we can activate it, but it doesn't do anything yet. We just have an empty ability. But this is a good start. And in the next video, we'll go ahead and set up some of the things that a basic spell needs, like mana cost, cooldown, and things like that. And then we can move on to actually implementing our FireBlast effect. And before we wrap up, I'm actually noticing that being lazy and reusing my description for the next level description actually doesn't quite work because this needs to be next level here, as the others say next level in that bottom menu in the scroll box. Now you could pass that string in as an input parameter if you wanted to be more efficient, but all I'm going to do is go back to FireBlast and just do what I was initially going to do, copy the contents of get description, paste them into get next level description, and change the title here to next level, like so. And next time we compile, that change will be there. Okay, great job, and I'll see you in the next video.